The life is easy. I like it. Everything they want to believe. Everything's nice.
Yes, right, whoever wants to go.
Then you have to just
He might start working already, but he might not make the title.
Really look at the world and go, oh,
that's the point.
this is a mess. And that takes bravery. And once again, that's why they don't want men to be brave. They want you to sit there and go, oh, it's easier to just, CNN said, so it must be. And it's cowardice. And they're trying to instill cowardice in all of us. That's what they're trying very hard to do. And I think even just me as a person, the people who hate me, my detractors who dislike me so much, even if I say nothing, I just turn up, big, bald, strong, fast car. But it's just me. I'm like the enemy to them. Because I symbolize men who don't comply. And not don't comply in a negative law breaking way, but don't comply in it if you don't agree with that, or we don't see common sense in that, we're going to politely decline. And that's simply not allowed.
What's it like to have the prospect of prison in your opinion?
I think that I like to believe that this is a test from God. I like to believe that if you become the most Googled man in the world for saying that you have allowed you to become the top G, we're going to see if you really are the top G. I believe that's how the world works. It's certainly intimidating, especially knowing you're completely innocent. But I believe it's my job to pass the test. For my ancestors.
Always remember what they say, great power comes great responsibilities. And Spider-Man, he uses it all the way.
Regardless of whether I win or lose. I still believe I'm going to lose. I've seen the case file and I've seen that no laws have been broken. But even in the very unfortunate circumstance that this Matrix attacks goes deep enough to throw me into a jail cell, I think I should handle it like a man. I think I should stay and finish the process, and I should walk with my head held high and suffer as much as I need to suffer, to stick by my convictions and know that I'm an innocent person, and I'm good at being without pain and suffering. And there's many times in my life where something terrible happened to me, and at the time, if I could change it, I would have. But retrospectively, I kind of look back and go, that was formulative for me. So that is what God decided I needed to become who I became. So all of the pain and all the suffering I've ever gone through in my life ended up, in the end, building me into the person I am, and I'm proud of who I am. So if God decides I need to go back to my He's done it for accept it and accept His plan and accept it to be a better person. And
so you see the hand of God in your life.
Absolutely.
Just like there's phone refurbished, there's Macs.
That's the planet. And like I said, if you retrospectively analyze all the times in life you wish you could have changed things, you knew better. And I'm going to have to accept that.
When did you conclude that?
I guess I always kind of knew. I was atheistic for a while when I was younger. But as you get older, you start to look at the world and understand that the thing for me was actually, I guess, a scientific principle. It was Newton's law of equal and opposite force. If there is evil in the world, and I'd like to think we both agree there certainly is, there has to be equal and opposite forces to good. And I would like to think that is God. Even the idea of God as a notion, even just as a concept, if that idea of God resists evil, then God is real. If you have two islands, you have two people, let's say a ship crashes, and you have two people who swim to two different islands, and one island they're atheists, savages, and they rip you apart. And the other island you get there and they believe in God and they believe they're not allowed to kill you. Even just their idea of God saved your life. So I think even just the concept of God in and of itself, if enough people believe it makes them do good, then God must be true. And that's the equal and opposite force of the evil of the world. And this is how I view it. So I don't see how anybody with a conscience can not believe in God anymore.
That's such a profoundly different worldview from the one that we're presented with, I think. Do you think that's maybe the division in the West between people who see those forces at work and those who don't?
I think the West is actually split between people who think and people who don't think at all. I think the people, there's no such thing as these two opposing worldviews. I think people believe there's worldview A and worldview B. I disagree with that. I think there's worldview A, the good guys.
What do you think of the shoes with the loafers?
Do believe in God.
Yeah, what point you wear
do believe in standards. Do believe in self-respect.
Yeah, the loafers. No.
And there's worldview B, which changes day by day. Regarding,
I think
I'm changing my style.
Not too.
And they have no standards, and they have no parameters. There's nothing you can tell them that
to hop off from one to another.
That's wrong, because they have no inherent morality. So you can literally
it's just styles.
You could say
I'm still
bestiality
man,
is
but I kind of dig it.
encouraged.
I still like my
It's good
cards, bro.
Because for climate
I
change.
still like my card
And the
style. You know what I mean? That's it. I
Always
got.
some,
Go.
always some
And,
questions, pero
So
that's
I think you have
miles
a
away.
camp of people who think, and you have a camp of people who repeat. And I don't think there's actually the opposing side to the good. I don't think function
Pero unos así no bien
as a
caros,
thinking
güey. pero
populace at all.
Se me siente bien weird, si bien piratón, eso, ¿no?
It feels like
You know,
there's, I mean,
you, at
the
the end of the day,
conflict
whatever
between
you're wearing, where
two
you don't feel
groups is getting
comfortable,
more
you gotta
intense.
notice.
It's certainly getting more
But
intense.
that's under checking yourself out too much, I don't know. But when
I-
you're comfortable, you don't even check yourself out.
It was interesting for me because, and I want to be an optimist, but I lost so much faith in humanity during COVID. I really, if you would have told me how COVID would have gone down before COVID, we're not that bad. You know, like, I thought the people aren't that dumb. But when I experienced COVID, it's actually scary. You see how the Nazis managed to do what they did. You see how they managed to put people in concentration camps. You see it. And I had a very unique view of COVID because in the first days of COVID, when people were falling over in China and the Italian hospitals were overrun, at the height of the panic, when most people believed, because it was the very beginning, early stages, my brother and I had a very logical conversation and said, we're two military-aged men in very good physical condition. If we die of this, the world's over. If it can kill us, it's zombie apocalypse. So why are we going to live in fear? So we found the only two countries that were open, which were Sweden and Belarus. We'd just been to Belarus. This is before the Ukraine war. We'd just been there. We decided to try Sweden. So for the first 3 months of COVID, during the height of lockdowns, when Florida was closed, when it was absolute,
I remember.
yeah, when it was the craziest lockdowns globally, me and Tristan are in Sweden in absolute freedom. They had no restrictions, no masks, no vaccine passports, no social distancing, nightclubs are full, restaurants are open, perfectly complete normal society. Nobody talks about this anymore. Nobody talks about, wait, Sweden never did a thing. Everything functioned perfectly fine the entire time. And they don't have it. Where's their mass? Where's their illness, their winter severe illness and death? Yeah. They never had one. It's a cold country. Never had one. So we were living in Sweden, living completely normal lives, seeing everyone, seeing the internet and seeing this insanity. And we're like, well, surely if we just put up a few videos of us partying in Sweden in nightclubs, this will wake people up. But didn't want people ignored their own eyes. That's the scariest thing about everything is that they can get to a level where, with the media machine, where people will genuinely ignore their own eyes. I don't understand how you can get people so brainwashed that they will see that the sky is blue, and then they'll watch that the sky is green, and then they'll look at it again and go, the sky's green. It's crazy to me. But COVID proves they can do that.
What's up?
And that's why the war is getting so intense, because the principled people are saying, how can you still believe in the things that
your
you're
rocks?
saying?
Okay, we'll put them on
Here's all
my
the logical empirical evidence that that is a lie. These people are ideologically brainwashed, and they don't want to take enough. They don't have the bravery it takes to wake up and accept that they're being lied to. So they'd rather just, at the end of time, repeat what they're told. And it becomes more and more intense as it becomes more and more ridiculous. That's so scary. As it becomes more and more ridiculous, the more intense both sides get.
Yes.
Right? So, all the results I'm not entirely sure, but I like to believe, even my current charges, I saw this when I was in jail, that the thinking people are looking at this going, something like this doesn't seem right.
Well, I mean, it is a little bracing. I mean, when I discovered, I mean, I was sympathetic to you already. Men accused of human trafficking, it's worth finding out what he's accused of. And when I discovered that there was no human trafficking charge, that's not actually human trafficking, I don't care what you call it. You weren't buying, even accused of buying and selling anyone. Then the next conclusion you inevitably reach is,
Te tardaste, ¿no? Te tardó, güey.
that does seem like an
¿Y
escalation.
tu mom, güey?
Absolutely, but
Is that?
¿Y with the
if you
tía?
don't like your views and you're inspiring millions of people to resist slave programming, you become a threat.
Yeah, next time we're gonna go to round one again together to the game. Okay, ya le dije a su dad.
You shouldn't, but even before I went
To the arcade, remember?
Parliament in the UK, they're talking about me and Mark Davis.
On the weekend.
So they launched this initiative inside of British schools to ban me. My name can't be said inside of a British school. And members of Parliament were standing up in Parliament saying, Andrew Tate is dangerous. He's encouraging young boys to have misogynistic views. Because I'm literally telling young men to go to the gym and to stand up for themselves. And believe in themselves and believe in something. And by extension, you look at some of the sexual education books,
I gotta find a bowl que sea de...
which I
No mames, ¿tienes una?
Not a bowl.
¿Una pecera?
Yeah.
Pecera for freeway.
They're pushing that.
Güey, no sé, ya.
Well, they're also pushing video games.
No, pues we
Oh,
gotta...
you can listen to rap
Una
music
pecera?
by people all day long.
I might use it, bro, if you don't need it.
Little Nas, you can have sex
Yeah,
with
I
the
underneath,
devil in
bro. One more
videos,
time.
that's fine. But I'm dangerous for saying go to the gym. And once I realized what was scary to me is, I said this to my brother, I said, once the parliament is discussing you, you're basically considered a national security threat at this point. You're a threat to national security at that level. And then all bets are off, right?
What about the UK? So the UK has become more authoritarian than anywhere in the Persian Gulf.
Güey, the war's still fucking going
How
on,
did
bro.
that happen?
En la news de la noche, güey, salen videos más chingones on Fox, güey. The injured y todo, güey, no mames, parece Black Hawk Down, güey.
A lot of them believe that the law is fair. I've had people say to me, oh yeah, what they're doing is garbage. Well, you need a lawyer. Well, yeah, I do need a lawyer, and I do have a lawyer. Thank you. But it's not that simple, unfortunately. You know, the law is very subjective, and if they want to attack you with it, they're going to do a very good job of attacking you with it. And that's what the UK does. The UK has these laws which are extremely subjective, and they can use it as a weapon to basically silence anyone they decide.
Well, why? England is the birthplace of free speech, of habeas corpus, of kind of framework of liberal democracy that we thought we believed in.
Yeah.
And now it's a country where people are arrested for predators.
Well,
What happened?
good question. And there's a saying I heard, and I don't know who said it, but he said that a sick country adopts laws like a dying man will try medicine. And I think that the UK is failing in real time. If you look at it in any metric, whether it's living standards, whether it's crime rate, any metric you can measure the success of a country by, it's fallen off the cliff. It's becoming more and more expensive to live there. The education system's gone down the pan. London is the stabbing capital of the world. You're not safe to leave your house. So their answer to this is just more and more and more laws. And unfortunately, as they do that, they're not even intelligent enough to actually attack the people who are doing genuinely bad for the world. They just make more and more authoritarian laws, and they end up using them to attack the people that the government doesn't like. And I ended up being one of them. And I think Europe in general has problems. If you look at France, has these big, I think it's on fire, isn't it? Most of it. It is. Yeah. So they have issues, and their answer, what's a government's solution to anything? Law. What can a government do? No matter what.
But they're not laws that are aimed at fixing the problem that's right in front
No,
of them.
the laws aimed at fixing the person who's talking about the problem. So why don't you get rid of the guy who tells everybody? Isn't that easier, Tucker? Why fix any of this? If we just shut him up, they won't know.
No, but that's like responding to a heat wave by breaking your thermometer.
Completely right.
It's like,
That's the plan.
say,
Plan one is to break the thermometer. We might deal with the heat wave a bit later. But
get air conditioning. No, let's break the thermometer.
for now, there's too many people talking about the heat wave. So let's just break that. And then later on, maybe when we have time, we'll do something about the actual issue.
It does seem like a lot of this is an effort not to talk about the real thing in Europe anyway, which is migration.
Yeah.
And the UK, formerly known as England, and France have both been completely changed by people from other countries.
Yep.
And who I'm sure have added good things too. I mean, I'm not, but they changed them, and in general, they're not better countries. And like, why can't anyone admit that?
But this is what's really interesting to me about what's happening. So we're talking about masculinity and men who say no and men who stand up. But there has to be balance, right? Everywhere in the world, there has to be power balances. If there's not a balance in power, there's going to be a vacuum, and that's going to be filled. If you neuter the native population of men, if you destroy their mentality to resist, if you tell them that every single thing about them masculine is wrong, and you basically feminize and unicate them, turn them into eunuchs, and then you import high testosterone men from the third world who don't believe any of this garbage, who grew up in a society where they understand the only way to succeed is to be a fearsome predator to a degree. What do you think is going to happen?
Like this?
Like, who's supposed to protect the sanctity of these nations and these settlements and these towns and villages? The police? No. In general, I would argue that it's the masculine essence that can be detected by the people who arrive. I guarantee if you were to take a bunch of these migrants in Sarajevo or Moscow, they behave themselves.
Oh yeah.
I have a feeling they just look around and go, not today. But when you neuter the native populace, then it's like, well, there's a power vacuum, and when there's a power vacuum, what do we expect to happen? So that's
what are the French gonna do about it? What's your average Englishman gonna do about it?
Nothing. And that's the thing, and that makes you wonder: is this purposeful? Like, why these two actions of neutering the native populace and importing these high testosterone third worlders are so at odds with each other? Is this purposeful? I'm not sure, but has anyone considered this? So yeah, it's interesting because you talk about
these are huge and intentional trends, and I mean they're historically transformative trends. They're a big deal. So they're probably not happening by accident, right? There's got to be some intent. How could there not be?
That's right. And how do they expect all of this to end? And this is exactly what's happening with migration. The problem with migration specifically is that there's no native masculine populace to enforce any degree of culture or boundary or parameter. And like I said, I would argue the point. And I've been to Sarajevo and I've been to Moscow. I've been to these places and I've seen there's a whole bunch of migration and everybody seems to just behave a little bit differently. And I think that's because people understand
that men live here.
That men live here. If you turn up in someone's house and their house is pristine, you're probably going to take your cup and you're going to go put it in the kitchen. But if you turn up in somebody's house and it's a fucking mess, and nobody respects the house and nobody cares, and the man is drugged out of his mind, half asleep on the couch, what are you going to do with your cup? You're going to leave it there. You don't give a shit. If you turn up to the Western world, look at
then you're going to hit on his wife.
Absolutely. So what do we expect to happen in these scenarios, right? And it is purposeful and it is scary that even me just telling men to go to the gym is seen as an act of defiance to the point where I have to be punished. I must go to jail. I must be silenced. Thermometer must be broken.
If at the end of all of this, no matter what happens, do you plan to stay in Romania?
I love Romania. I love this country. And if I am found not guilty, I will stay in Romania, yeah. I will still stay here. I don't believe in running away. I also believe, and perhaps this is...
Yeah, I didn't even want to ask you that. It's not a legal case pending, but I mean, presumably you're rich enough to run away when you haven't.
Correct. I'm not going anywhere. I think if I was anywhere in the Western world, this would have happened to me. I don't think this is Romania's fault. Let's put it that way. I don't think this is Romania's fault. I think if I resided in Switzerland or France or Italy, the same thing would happen. From knowing what I know. I think it's going to happen to me regardless, and I think I do have a large amount of sympathy, especially amongst the Romanian population. I get thousands of messages a day from Romanians apologizing.